Welcome back, everyone. Part 2. We're talking about Thor Love and Thunder here on the Everything Podcast. This is part 2, so we're going to go in detail. Uh, we're going to really break down our thoughts on this movie. We're going to really go at it. The whole thing with Zeus. What was the place called? Not Olympus. That wasn't it. I forget what it was called. Do you
I'm not
remember?
sure. I'm not sure either. You would know, Cam, because you're the most knowledgeable out of the three of us on MCU stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I should probably figure that out. But that whole thing with Zeus. Let's talk about that. I thought that was hilarious. You might disagree with me. I thought Zeus, played by Russell Crowe, was fantastic, and credit scene only makes it better. What did you think, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed his end credit scene more than his scenes with Thor and stuff in the movie, because the first time that I was introduced in the movie at that part of the film, I was still having issues with pace and comedy. I mean, I feel like they're playing comedy, like they're playing it in a comedic way when there is this god butcher out here trying to kill all of the gods, and yet like they're doing it with comedy, and I found the pacing too fast in Zeus's first scenes, but then I thought the end credit scene was just extremely compelling, and I look forward to hopefully seeing more of that in the next Thor film. So, Mike, what did you think about Zeus, played by Russell Crowe?
Well, I want to back up a little bit to approach the Russell Crowe and the whole scene with Zeus and their meeting with him. So, if I can, Fozzie, I'd like to reference another podcast featured on your channel, and that it's called "What Grinds My Gears." Are you familiar with this?
I am familiar with this.
Well, towards the end of the most recent episode, the host of that show, Mr. Todd DeCudo, um, was explaining some dissatisfaction he has, or irritation, I might say, with certain forms of expressions. And one of them is, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And I believe that Mr. Dakuda was very emphatic that absolutely you can have your cake and eat it too. And he thought that that expression was just pointless. But the expression actually has many idiomatic and syntactical pieces within the development of language. But one of the ways the expression means is that you cannot have two incompatible things, or that one should not try to have more than is reasonable. In this movie, I believe Taika Waititi, like Mr. Todd DeCudo, is having his cake and eating it too. He's putting incompatible things together. He's having excessive switches and tones, and that's part of what's happening. And I believe this scene and Russell Crowe's performance, which I saw way over the top and completely unexpected, his take on Zeus actually was really marvelous. However, I almost forgot about it because there were so many other elements that were happening. And when Russell
Really? Wow.
Crowe and Zeus, and this isn't in no way, shape, or form is this to take away from Russell Crowe's performance, because I actually thought it was excellent. But it was almost out of this satirical approach to a Zeus type character. And obviously, it's pivotal in the storyline and taking Zeus's thunder and all those pieces. So when he comes back at the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, is Zeus going to be eventually almost a bad guy within the MCU and where things are going down the line?
Looks like
So
it.
I thought Russell Crowe played it fascinatingly. I think this was a true collaboration between him and the director, and yet it was a roller coaster of a scene. I did enjoy it, and yet I was on to the next thing after that and kind of forgot about it within the pacing of the film. Almost like when I'm on the next amusement park ride, I kind of forget about the one I'm on before that because I'm so engrossed in what's happening.
I actually thought it was one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. I thought it was the most, arguably the most funny. Korg was hilarious. especially when he was talking about how he was hoping to see his own god there, which just made me laugh when he did see his own god, which, by the way, was sitting on a throne, which, if you didn't see, the throne was made of scissors, and as you know, rock beats scissors. Kind of a callback to his joke when we first see Korg in Thor Ragnarok, and obviously reference to rock, paper, scissors. So I thought it was hilarious. Um, I feel like that fight scene was awesome. Like I said, I wish Korg didn't get kinda killed, but I get it. I get it. I thought it was cool seeing Thor fight with those chains. I thought it was a cool, different style of combat. And I just want to talk about the fight scenes of this movie for a second.
Yeah, please do.
They're some of the coolest scenes in Marvel. And that's another thing I want to bring up. This is the most cool Marvel movie. Like, there's some scenes where it's literally just Thor and Axe and some awesome Guns N' Roses playing in the background. What more can you ask? I mean, that sounds like heaven. I mean, it's the coolest thing you could imagine. You just have them beating up some bad guys with a hammer and thunder and lightning and Guns N' Roses. I mean, that's awesome. So, easily the coolest movie. And this fight scene is just as cool. You have Mighty Thor with that hammer is really cool, actually. The way it like spreads apart. That I thought they did that brilliantly. I thought Taika thought of that awesome. I wasn't like I didn't think they'd use the hammer like that. I don't know. I thought that was really cool, and I thought all the fight scenes were awesome. They looked great. But yeah, that's just my quick. Um, those are my thoughts on the fight scenes in this movie.
Yeah, I think like in terms of like how the fight scenes were filmed, like you couldn't ask for anything more. And obviously, we've mentioned how this film is visually stunning. But like another point I have to make here is, as great as the visuals were in this film, we all know that in this day and age, we have the technology to make visuals like that in films. So, therefore, for me, because I know that we're perfectly able to create technology and visuals and great fight scenes like that, that's not going to completely win the movie over for me. It's also going to have to
and
have
I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying it should.
dialogue. So, as great as they were, there are other things that I look at besides, fights and visuals to make it a great film. But were all the fight scenes, filmed great and looked great? Of course.
Yeah. So this is my big question. This or
Fire away.
Morbius? This or Morbius? Love and Thunder or Morbius?
Well, obviously, Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
I mean, look, even if I'm higher on Morbius than other people, there's no way I'm putting it over Love and Thunder.
just have to make sure.
Oh yeah, of course.
All right, so Natalie Portman in this movie, I want to dive deep into her character. I thought her with cancer was awesome. I felt it. I felt it. That's for sure.
And also taken right cam straight from the comic books as well.
Yeah, I pretty much knew it was gonna happen because the Taika had said that he is taking material from that comic series, The Mighty Thor, the Jason Aaron series. So,
and I think cancer is a good way to describe how she would even become Mighty Thor. So I thought that was a good storyline to borrow from the comics in this movie, because it would make sense why she would become a superhero.
And I think it's just brilliant how the hammer's healing her. Well, it's making her powerful, but it's also kind of killing her every time she uses it. So I thought that was just such a great thing for a character. I mean,
and maybe echoing the character of 11 in Stranger Things, that when she uses
you're right.
her powers, it actually diminishes her strength.
That's happened to Grogu as well in The Mandalorian, where he'll do something, but then he'll get exhausted and maybe fall asleep a second later.
And I wonder if that's an arc that's mined in other comic books. And obviously, Taika Waititi definitely knows his comic books and the structures and the different series, and his depth of knowledge there actually brightens up so many of the plot lines. I enjoyed a lot the plot line around Jane with the cancer. It was one of those things, though, where the film wanted to have its cake and eat it too, because sometimes it's light and haha and funny, and then in another scene, you got Jane getting her cancer treatments. So, and yet, as Uncle Todd DeCudo from Whitman, Massachusetts, has pointed out on What Grinds My Gears, he believes you can have your cake and eat it too. I believe this film believes you can have your cake and eat it too. In totality, I'm in agreement, but I can understand why some people would find that inconsistent.
Well, I mean, yeah, I just think at the end of the day, as I said earlier, it's not like this film can't have comedy, but just with the storyline and stuff, I just don't think it's a movie that should have comedy all throughout. I think I think the entire film should have been made like the opening scene with Gore and the stuff at the end. I just think they should have made it more like that than what you were saying, Mike, about 1 second Jane having cancer and then another second it's haha jokes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and once again, another example of where another 25 minutes could have been useful, where they could really focus on how the cancer was affecting Jane. So, yeah.
I think I'm starting to agree with your take there, Fozzie. I think and there's a thing about how long you actually should have, a summer blockbuster film, but the MCU hasn't been afraid to have longer movies. And obviously they left a lot of footage on the cutting room floor. It would be really interesting to see how much footage there was.
In total, 4 hours.
Yeah, that surprised me when I heard that.
So really, they're making a collage of the footage, right? And you can see where editing is so pivotal to the experience. Because maybe there was more within the Jane and Thor storyline that would have.
Do you think Taika wanted to take that out, or do you think it was just a big Marvel decision?
Well, as I have been reflecting on this, and I'll wait to hear from you too as the permanent host, and you have a greater knowledge than I do, but Will and I have been doing a deep dive into Taika Waititi over the past week or so, and I've seen 4 or 5 of his films. And outside of this one, what the other 4 have in common that we've seen, which is Boy, The Hunt for the Wilder People, Jojo Rabbit, and Ragnarok.
That's the only one I've seen. I've only seen Jojo Rabbit and Ragnarok.
But they're both tight movies, right? There's not scenes in there that I'm like, oh, this scene's wasted, or it doesn't make sense, or it's not staying in line with the plot. This one kind of is a bit all over the place, and I wonder if the material got away from them a little bit. They were so ambitious on what they wanted to fit in there. Once they got into the editing room, I think they realized some of it doesn't all add up, and I think they actually made the first part your more dramatic intro. They had to put in that Guardians of the Galaxy pieces because everyone was expecting it to be there, even if it didn't really fit. They had a vision for a romantic comedy that goes in the middle, but the end is really, and probably my favorite part of the movie, is actually the more dramatic piece about Thor and Jane's relationship, the battle with this very evil being that they're confronting, and there was a lot that was happening there. So I actually think when they got into the editing room, they might not have known how to put this all together.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I actually totally see what you're saying. And you can look at a lot of movies and just see how much, movies can completely change in editing. I mean, take a look at Justice League, the original 2017 Justice League movie, and with, granted, of just a few reshoots, but mostly just re-editing and reworking it. We get a re-release of the movie, the original director's cut. You get the Snyder cut of that movie, which is 4 hours long, an epic, awesome film, rather than the 2017 version, a cheap, kind of crappy superhero movie. So things can change in the editing room.
I'm not convinced, though, longer would necessarily be better here with what they shot. I think they just shot a bunch of different styles.
Yeah, I mean, I just would have maybe made some like scenes longer, just in terms of like Thor and Jane getting to know each other again, and Valkyrie and Jane forming a relationship.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, that my only real complaint for this movie is the length. A little longer. That's my only real complaint.
I would say my main three are, and this has to do with not the beginning, not the end, but like the middle, and actually a big part of the middle section. It's pace, too much comedy, and character development issues. Those were the three things that came to light for me as my issues, and that's why I have to have it at a 7.5 out of 10 instead of the 8.5 out of 10 that the two of you have.
Yeah. Alright, so I think it's time to talk about where I really want to say some stuff. The ending of this movie. Also, I also wanted to talk about how the scene in Love and Thunder where he gives the children the power of Thor for a brief moment. Is that what he says? Just a moment, whatever he says.
Yeah, like feel the power of Thor or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't love that. It was a cool scene, but I feel like Taika is just kind of making that stuff up as he goes, because that would have been convenient in like every other Marvel movie. So I don't know, little too far for me, but it was a pretty cool scene.
It was cool. I'm with you on that. I mean, I didn't have too much issue with it. How about you, Mike?
I loved it. I've kind of, I've had this thing, and I may have mentioned it on the Everything podcast in the past, but there have been scenes where I have seen Thor be in battle against like hundreds of evildoers, and he'll bring his hammer, smash it against the ground, and they all fall down and die. And I'm like, well, why doesn't he just do this all the time? Now I'm starting to wonder, is that level of power only accessible at certain times and in certain moments? Like
kind of like Moon Knight, actually. Kind of like Moon Knight. The most
like,
powerful one that there's a full moon at night.
And I think I'm wondering if certain events and situations have to come together because, the thunder actually radiating through Thor, that doesn't happen all the time, right? It's only in certain moments. So I wonder if something happened in that moment that allows him to transfer the power of Thor into the kids. And I love that because it was unexpected. And I love that the kids had that payback moment because they were being so exploited.
That's a really good point there, actually. But now I want to talk about the ending. So, at the end of the movie, Gore gets his daughter back, and Gore dies, unfortunately, because he kind of got redeemed there. And then Gore's daughter kind of becomes Thor's daughter. And I'd also like to point out that is actually Chris Hemsworth's daughter.
Which I think makes it even more powerful, the fact that it's played by Chris Hemsworth's actual real-life daughter.
But the thing is, the big thing with me, most of the time, I hate child actors, and I think this is going to be one of the times where I hate this child actor. Hate's a strong word. Dislike, that's a strong word. But you have the child actors in Stranger Things, which is different, I'll say.
They're phenomenal in Stranger Things.
Yeah, totally. But I think that has a lot to do with the writing. Most writers usually don't know how to put themselves in a kid's shoes and write lines that a kid would actually say. So I think that's usually a big problem with child actors. It's not always their performance. Granted, a lot of the time it is their performance, but I think it goes a lot to the writers. So a big problem I had with Gore's daughter was she wasn't like developed enough. She didn't really. She died at the beginning of the movie, and she came back. I didn't. It didn't look like she was like sad to see her dad die. There just wasn't enough emotion there for me. I mean, and then she's Thor's daughter now, and all of a sudden Thor and her are kind of like friends. They hadn't really like talked, and then I guess they're gonna fight these people. I don't like it. I think it's just kind of ridiculous and a bit too cheesy. So wasn't a big fan of that.
I didn't have a problem with it. I think in a lot of ways, when he was taking on raising Gore's daughter, in some respects, it's like his father taking on raising Loki, right? So there's something in the
Good
family
point. Yep.
about that. And you'll see it in other films. There's elements of Star Wars in there too, with Luke Skywalker being raised by the uncle, but he's actually, the child of the evil person. And I believe Taika Waititi knows exactly what he's doing and what he's referencing when he does these things. But I think it's a way to honor Jane, and to see this person as still a child. And so their relationship near the end, when he's making her breakfast, I believe, is because time has gone by, and that Thor has done what Peter Quill recommended that he do, and that open his heart up and open it up to pain and to losing Jane and to being vulnerable in that way. So I think that's what's at play there. Now, whether it resonated for you or not, Fozzie, is just your experience and how you're receiving it. But that's how I view that. And then when he's making her breakfast, there's a gap in time there. That's to demonstrate how their relationship has, evolved over time. I think we'll see more of it potentially down the line. And those are my thoughts on that. What are your thoughts, Will?
Yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I didn't have an issue with it. I mean, I've stated before that I was fine with the end of the film. I thought the dialogue between, her and Thor was great. And I think, she knew that Thor would be trustworthy because she heard her father say to Thor, protect my daughter. And I think that was giving her the okay that, she would be okay with Thor. So yeah, I thought that was one of the, probably the most powerful part of the movie, and made even more powerful by, as I said earlier, and as you said firsthand, the fact that she's played by Chris Hemsworth's actual real life daughter.
Yeah, it must make it a lot easier acting with a child actor there for Chris Hemsworth.
I think he would do well. I think he'd do well.
I agree. He's a fantastic.
He'd do well no matter what. And she wasn't the first young actor that he had to do scenes with in this film.
But Fozzie, I want to agree with your point about child actors or young people in most films. And a case in point where, in one of my troubles with the Miss Marvel, is I haven't found the acting believable, and I haven't found the writing for the characters necessarily believable. I probably broke a rule within the MCU universe, in that I abandoned ship, I believe, after episode 3.
Yes.
Is that the one where?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Although I will say, I watched, and I never thought I'd be watching a Marvel show just me and my mom, because my mom isn't an action person. But we watched episode 5, and we actually thought episode 5 was the best episode of the show, because they finally slowed down the pace and made the storyline more intriguing. Like, it was the best pace episode of anything that I've seen so far in Miss Marvel, but still, it's not my show.
But
that's good to know. I haven't even this is crazy, but I haven't watched episode 5 yet, so
That's okay.
Well, Lori Jean Stelling Coughlin, Will's mother, your aunt Cam, and my wife told me today, on our way to the Toyota dealership to pick up my 2005 Prius, so that was getting its 120,000 mile service. On our ride there,
She told me this too.
she said episode 5 was exceptional.
She could not believe how good it was. Now, I wouldn't go that far, but I definitely thought it was the best episode, and the pace was the best it's been all series.
Yeah,
I
but
haven't found the child actors to be believable in that show. And I just want to honor what you were saying, Fozzie, because I do have that challenge in watching a lot of movies. And you know what? But Taika Waititi has child actors in a lot of his films, and they're
he
almost all
does.
fantastic.
In the film, like the child actors in the film Boy, I found unbelievable. Like
Same with
incredible
Jojo Rabbit. I
child
thought
actors in Boy. Jojo Rabbit, great. Hunt for the Wilder People, fantastic. But by the way, Hunt for the Wilder People, absolutely brilliant. An absolutely brilliant film by Taika Waititi, if I may say.
if you want to see a good movie with good child acting, check out. I think you guys have seen it. Moonrise Kingdom. That has some of
Oh,
the
absolutely.
best child acting ever.
And take a look at Ghostbusters Afterlife last
Go
year.
perfect. Yeah, that actually has
It
Finn
had the
Wolfhard from Stranger
yes, in
Things.
Stranger Things, and the actor who plays Elliot in E.T. is an exceptional
Oh
young.
my gosh, yes.
Yeah, I agree with all the films and shows that you pointed out there. They're examples of it being done well, you know. And Steven Spielberg was one of the first people who really understood, I think, how to write for child actors and not just make them stereotypes, but make them three-dimensional human beings.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Because, well, granted, he didn't direct The Goonies, I believe. I don't think he directed it, he produced it. That is, again, great child acting.
Um, I have to make an admission here on the Everything podcast. Goonies, D minus.
Oh my
I
goodness.
didn't love it either when I first saw it, but maybe I
And I do not
again.
find the child actors believable in Goonies.
I like him.
My bias, Lori Jean Stelling Coughlin loves Goonies. Loves
I
Goonies.
love it.
I'm not gonna be here and be a Goonies hater. People who love Goonies, more power to you. And you know what? I never saw it when it came out in the theater. So I didn't see it until a couple years ago when we sat down on a family viewing night, and I was ready for a great movie. I was sadly disappointed.
Now, one more thing about like good child actors versus not so good child actors. So there's a show, I believe it came out in the 80s. It's called The Wonder Years. And the star is Fred Savage, and him and the other young child actors in that film are exceptional, completely believable characters. Now they did a remake of the Wonder Years starting last year, which I didn't see all the episodes of because I didn't enjoy it. But they did a remake of the episode of the Wonder Years last year, but this time focusing on a Black family growing up in that time period
that's awesome.
in Alabama, and like that in the storyline and stuff is fantastic. But the difference between the old Wonder Years and the new Wonder Years is that in the old Wonder Years, I completely believed the actors. They seemed like real people. I felt like I could actually be friends with them. Whereas in this new Wonder Years series, it was so clear to me that the young actors were acting. They didn't seem like real people. I could tell that I was watching actors acting. And that was the difference for me between the old Wonder Years, which I think is a fantastic show, and the new Wonder Years, which I did not think was a well-written or a show with good young actors.
Really? That's surprising. I haven't seen Wonder Years, but it's a good show, so that's actually surprising. But yeah, it kind of just shows you how if you want a good child actor, you need a good writer, you know?
Writing is a big part of it. I think that's a great point, Cam. Like, actually, like, for instance, like, when I watch films like it, and I know this is moving away from young actors, but, like, when I watch films like the Ant-Man films, which I don't enjoy, like, many times, like with the Ant-Man films, the acting is actually not my problem, and it's the writing. I actually think the actors do well considering the material that they've been given. So, as much as I feel the way I feel about the new Wonder Years, and their young actors, I will also point out that I think the writing is very subpar in the show as well, and a good script is a big, big part of it. So I think that's a great point, Cam.
All right, so I just want to talk about the end credit scenes now, and then we'll wrap it up. So, end credit scenes of this movie, fantastic. Hercules, played by Brett Goldstein. who's actually in one of my favorite TV shows, Ted Lasso. He plays Roy Kent. Great character in that show. So I'll be excited to see Thor 5 with Hercules trying to chase down Thor. That'll be awesome. And then we have Idris Elba as Heimdall in Valhalla with Jane. At first I was thinking, are they going to do a Valhalla TV show talking about the people in Valhalla? But then I realized, no. I think this is just closure for Heimdall, for Jane, to show that they really are happy, and they are happy to have lived the lives that they live.
Yeah. That's a good point, Cam. Hey, Cam, would you mind if I quickly reveal where this is on my Thor list and my Marvel list?
Go ahead. I'll also give my Thor movie rankings after.
All right, I'm going to start. All right, I am going to now. The only MCU film that I haven't seen is the Incredible Hulk, which I will see before She-Hulk comes out this August. But this may surprise people, but I actually have this film at number 18 on my list. And I'm going to, I think, cause a lot of anger with certain films that I have ahead of it and, maybe below it too. But these are the films that I have higher than Thor, Love and Thunder. Iron Man 2, Thor, The Avengers, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Captain America, Civil War, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man Far From Home, Black Widow, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. However, I would put it over Captain America, the First Avenger, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Avengers Age of Ultron, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Eternals. And movies that I have over Love and Thunder means that because I do think that Thor, Love and Thunder has a compelling storyline and stuff with, Jane and Gore and stuff like that. But films that I have over Love and Thunder, I believe their pacing is better and their comedy choices are better. So that's why I have the films that I have over Love and Thunder. And I'm probably, I'll be curious to see what you think, Mike, but my ranking of the 4 films goes as follows. Number 4, Thor the Dark World. Number 3, Thor Love and Thunder. Number 2, the original Thor. And number 1, Thor Ragnarok. And I'd be fascinated to hear your list, Cam.
All right, I have at number 4 my least favorite of all time Marvel movie. I just find so boring and forgettable. Thor: Dark World. Then Thor, which I don't think is a bad movie. Don't think it's a great movie. Just kind of bland for me. So then the original Thor, directed by Kenneth Branagh. Then Thor: Love and Thunder, and then Thor: Ragnarok.
Cool, yeah. I'm sure most people would probably agree with your list there, Cam. So yeah, that's a good list. I don't have any issue with it. Mike, where does this film kind of resonate for you compared to other Thor films?
I think, it's hard because I like the different Thor films for different reasons. And I'm not the Dark World hater that everybody else is. When I came to the original Thor, because I know that movie had some mixed reviews too, I couldn't believe it. I loved the original Thor. And I love Ragnarok, and I love them both for different reasons. I could create a list where I could have either of those at number 1. But I think in the end, I'm probably leaning towards being closer, Will, to your list with Ragnarok 1. Boy. Thor 2, Love and Thunder 3, and Dark World 4. But I have to be honest. There's a part of me that could slot the first Thor in as my favorite.
I could do that too, but I just thought the way that Ragnarok was done was so masterful, and I have to put that at 1 on my Thor list.
Yeah, I would never put Thor 1 in my top 4 at number 1. I just don't think it's worthy of that. But I think Loki's great in all those movies, so I think he's a big part that really helps him out. I don't hate him. I don't love him. they're just in the middle for me. Except for Dark World, I just despise that movie.
Nice to see Matt Damon again, as I believe.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we have
his title, and then actually seeing him in the film as well. So nice to see you, Matt Damon, and nice job.
Yeah, we also have Melissa McCarthy as Hela, Sam Neill as Odin, and Luke Hemsworth as Thor.
Yeah. So that's cool how they did all that.
Yeah, it is cool. Alright, so I think that about covers it for Thor Love and Thunder.
Oh, really quick, guys. A letter grade for the film. I'm going to go... I'll go with an A-. How about you, Ken?
A-.
Mike?
I'm going a B+ because on a scale, if I'm saying 8.5 comes out to 85 out of 100, which to me comes into the B+ territory. But with that being said, I really had a great time. I walked out of that film, will know, really enjoying it. If I wasn't critiquing the film, I might end up rating it higher.
Yeah. That can happen with some of these big, kind of just fun movies, you know? Just gotta let your mind, just gotta turn off your brain and enjoy it.
Quickly, Cam, will Thor be back? It says it at the end. Do you think he'll have his own movie?
Yep. I totally think so. We will get a Thor 5, and it will be directed by Taika Waititi. It'll be awesome.
And I'll tell you,
that's what I'm
Russell
thinking.
Crowe will be in it, and Natalie Portman will be in it.
Really? You think?
That's my prediction, and Hercules will be in it because they're going into that God realm.
I'd love to see it. I really would. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this 2-part episode of the Everything Podcast. It was great talking about Thor Love and Thunder with you guys. It's always awesome having you on, Mike and Will. It's always awesome doing these podcasts. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.